Welcome to the Deep Dive. Okay, today we're tackling a really interesting one. Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. This is a book you hear whispered about, definitely praised sometimes, but also, fiercely debated. You see it everywhere, boardrooms, pop culture. Our goal here isn't really to say, go use these laws, not at all. It's more about trying to understand the perspective here on influence, on control, power dynamics, those subtle, sometimes maybe not some subtle currents that kind of decide who's got the upper hand. We want to pull out the key insights for you. If you're curious, you want to get a quick handle on what this book's actually about, why it's popular, why it gets criticized, and maybe save you wading through all, 450 plus pages. So what makes this thing tick? Why isn't it just another self-help book you skim through?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because what's fascinating here, it's definitely not your typical feel-good self-help guide. People often call it the modern Machiavelli.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a pretty loaded comparison.
Right, Machiavelli, the ends justify the means, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Niccolo Machiavelli, back in the Renaissance, wrote some pretty pragmatic, some would say ruthless, advice for rulers on gaining and keeping power. Greene kind of positions his book similarly. As a strategic manual, it's about teaching you how power works, gaining it, keeping it, sure, but also how to see it in others. And crucially, how to defend yourself against it. It's really trying to map out the architecture of power in society.
A strategic manual.
Okay.
And it doesn't exactly shy away from the tougher aspects, does it? How does he actually lay it all out? What's the structure, the blueprint for these 48 laws?
Right. So, like the title says, it's built around these 48 distinct laws. But what makes it really compelling, I think, isn't just the laws themselves. It's that each one isn't just presented as theory. No, it's packed with real historical examples.
The stories. That's what people mention.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking about figures like Napoleon, the military genius, Sun Tzu, the Art of War author. Machiavelli himself gets referenced naturally, even powerful rulers like Queen Elizabeth I. And these aren't just quick mentions. They're woven into these narratives that show the law in action, sometimes successfully, sometimes not so much.
Those are some heavy hitters. Is there maybe one story, one example from the book that really stands out for you? Like one that perfectly captures how these laws are supposed to work?
That's a good one. Greene often brings up the story of Count Victor Lustig. He's the guy who famously sold the Eiffel Tower. Twice, actually.
Sold the Eiffel Tower? How?
Well, that's the point. He didn't use force. He didn't overtly manipulate in an obvious way. He crafted this incredibly convincing appearance of being a government official. He understood what his marks, scrap metal dealers, wanted. He maintained this air of secrecy and importance. It's a perfect example of laws like appearances matter or always say less than necessary. Shows how power can be about these clever psychological games, not just big obvious moves.
Wow.
So these stories, they give you these sort of practical, if sometimes dark, lessons on influence, strategy, leadership, all shown through history's big wins and big fails. The book's really aiming to help you see that hidden side of how people operate, presenting these laws as kind of universal truths about power, whether it's ancient China or modern Silicon Valley.
That Lustig example really shows how subtle it can be. Okay, so let's really get into the nuts and bolts of Greene's thinking. What's the absolute first thing, the foundation he wants you to get about power?
The first and maybe the most fundamental insight is simply power is everywhere. It's inescapable.
Everywhere, like not just in Washington or Wall Street.
Exactly. It's not confined to politics or big business deals. It's, according to Greene, an omnipresent force.
Which, raises the question, if it's everywhere, how does it actually show up?
And the book argues it plays out in, pretty much every part of life, doesn't it? Politics, obviously. Business, for sure. But also friendships, even family.
And these dynamics can be out in the open, clear rules, clear hierarchies, or they can be totally silent, unspoken agreements, subtle moves, like this constant undercurrent.
Precisely. And building right on that idea that it's everywhere, the next really critical insight Greene pushes is that appearances matter. A lot.
Okay, so not just looking sharp.
No, it's deeper than that. It's about the huge psychological weight of how you craft your image, how you control the story people tell about you. Greene basically says in the power game, what people think they see often matters more than objective reality. Perception becomes this incredibly potent tool. And he gives specific laws for this, like always say less than necessary. Being quiet can make you seem wise, or like you've got hidden depths, hidden power. Your words hit harder when they finally come.
Right, less is more.
Or another one, court attention at all costs, which sounds vain, but the point isn't vanity. It's about staying visible, staying relevant. If people forget about you, your influence just vanishes.
That definitely highlights the strategic side of interacting with people, which makes me think of another huge point in the book: strategy over emotion. Greene really pounds this home, doesn't he? Be strategic, not emotional.
Oh, absolutely.
He argues that people who act on impulse, who react based on how they feel right now, they almost always lose out to the people who think ahead, the planners, the ones who can detach.
Yep.
That feels like a really key distinction he makes. Emotion is framed as a major liability when you're trying to get or keep power.
It's a central theme, definitely runs through the whole book. And what's fascinating then is how he connects that strategic thinking directly to, well, relationships.
Ah, okay, how so?
He really highlights how relationships themselves are often used as tools for influence, not just, for genuine connection, which leads to that other key insight, relationships manipulation. He gives laws that show this, like use absence to increase respect and honor. Basically pull back sometimes to make people want you more.
Playing hard to get, but strategically.
Sort of. Or keep others dependent on you. Make yourself so essential, your skills so unique, that people feel they can't operate without you. It's about seeing how, for some people anyway, even close bonds can become levers to pull.
That sounds, well, pretty cynical about relationships. Is there any room for genuine connection in this view? Or is it really just presenting everything as a potential tool? How does someone read that and not feel kind of bleak?
Yeah, it is cynical, and that's a fair point. Greene doesn't really offer much in the way of reconciliation or balancing it out with warmth. He's presenting these as observations, like, this is how power often works, not necessarily this is how it should work. He's trying to show you the mechanics as he sees them, not paint an ideal picture.
So it's descriptive, not prescriptive, more like know thine enemy or know the game.
Exactly. The idea isn't necessarily to tell you to be amoral, but to make sure you recognize that these subtle, sometimes ethically questionable methods are used. They're part of the landscape.
Yeah.
It's a stark picture, not a moral guide.
Okay, that makes more sense, especially if you think about the book as also being about defense. Practical wisdom, maybe.
Right.
Even if you don't want to play these games, knowing the rules helps you see when someone else is playing them against you. It's like a manual for spotting manipulation tactics.
Yeah.
That's got to be a big part of the appeal for many readers.
Definitely a huge part. Self-protection.
Okay, so any book that dives into power, influence, human nature like this, it's bound to stir things up. It gets strong reactions. So what does this all boil down to? Why is the 48 Laws of Power so popular, yet also so heavily criticized? Let's unpack that a bit.
Yeah, this is where you see the real paradox of the book. Its biggest strengths, the history, the practical insights, are tangled up with its biggest criticisms, mostly around that amorality issue.
Okay, so strengths first. We mentioned the historical stories. Fascinating stuff. Makes it engaging, right? Not just a dry textbook.
Absolutely. It really is a page-turner in that sense. You get drawn into these little dramas of emperors and con artists and courtiers.
And beyond just being entertaining, there are practical lessons in there about influence, strategy, leadership, timeless skills people want, whether they're, running a company or just navigating office politics.
Exactly. And maybe a third strength is how it genuinely does help you see that hidden layer of human behavior. It kind of pulls back the curtain on the unspoken rules, the maneuvers that often decide who gets ahead.
Okay, but then the criticisms.
Right. And if we connect this back, the controversy really comes down to that feeling of immorality. That's the core criticism. Many people find it straight up manipulative. Some laws pretty openly encourage things like deception, ruthlessness, even undermining people deliberately. It's definitely not warm and fuzzy.
And it's not exactly a handbook for teamwork, is it?
Not even close. Another criticism is just how harsh it feels if you're looking for positive advice or ways to collaborate better. It's very focused on individual gain, often seemingly at others' expense.
So kind of isolating in its perspective.
Can be, yeah. And then just practically speaking, it's long, 450 plus pages. It's dense. It's not a light read you pick up for quick tips.
Okay, so weighing all that, what does this mean for you, the listener? Is this book something you should pick up? Our deep dive suggests the final verdict is pretty clear. The 48 Laws of Power is definitely not a feel-good book. Don't expect positive affirmations here. It's much more like a survival manual for competitive situations.
That nails it. And that really gets to the book's core purpose and who it's probably best for. Look, opinions are split sharply. Some people will see it as cynical, manipulative, even dangerous. Others praise it as intensely realistic, offering truths about human nature and power that, well, maybe aren't comfortable but are true.
So it depends on your perspective, your needs.
Pretty much. It's probably a must-read if you genuinely want to understand how influence and control actually operate in the real world. Whether you intend to use that knowledge actively, or, as we said, just to defend yourself when others use it. The intended audience seems pretty clear: leaders, entrepreneurs, political types. But really, anyone who wants a deeper, maybe more critical understanding of power dynamics.
And despite all the controversy,
Yeah, despite everything, that high rating, like 4.5 out of 5 stars online, shows it has a massive impact. It resonates with a lot of curious people.
and there we have it. We've journeyed through Robert Greene's complex, often controversial world in the 48 Laws of Power. We looked at its structure, the history, the core ideas about power's mechanisms, and yeah, the strengths and the criticisms that really define its legacy. We've tried to pull out the essence for you. Understanding these dynamics, even if you totally disagree with the book's philosophy, can still be pretty valuable for just navigating the world. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
And maybe just one final thought for you to take away. This raises an important question, doesn't it? How do you draw the line between simply understanding power dynamics, which, let's face it, is often necessary, and actually endorsing the more ruthless or manipulative ways of using power? What responsibility comes with knowing these laws, whether you plan to use them or just recognize them? Something to definitely mull over.